Good afternoon. This is Barbara Reed, Manager for the Provider Support and Audits for AIA Continuing Education Services. This is the AIA CES webinar all about HSW. Joining me today are Luz Toro, Manager, CES Provider Support and Course Reviews, and Ramiro Solorzano, Senior Manager for CES. Today we're going to talk about HSW, how the definition changed when we went to the new AIA CES standards for continuing education last year. Spoiler for you, it didn't really change at all. We're going to help you to understand HSW through some examples, a little bit about course development and the HSW justification. We are also going to talk about how Ramiro, Luz, and I, as course reviewers, look at HSW, how we review it, what our comments mean, and what we expect from you as education providers. We'll also give you a timeline for review. So what is health, safety, welfare? How does it tie into AIA continuing education? Well, first of all, AIA continuing HSW is required for all AIA member architects and international associates. As a member, people are required to get to obtain 18 learning units, at least 12 of which are in health, safety, welfare areas. HSW is required for continuing education and license renewal for most jurisdictions, licensing jurisdictions in the U.S. states and territories. And HSW also helps to improve the professional and the profession. So, as I mentioned, the AIA CES standards for continuing education were introduced January 1st, 2019. They replaced the previous AIA CES guidelines and also helped to bring particularly the HSW definition closer into alignment with that of NCARB, which is the National Council of Architecture Registration Boards. NCARB is a nonprofit which is composed of the architecture registration boards of all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the 4 U.S. territories, Guam, U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and Northern Mariana Islands. It also develops, NCARB develops and administers the architecture registration exam, and it also administers the AXP, the Architecture Experience Program, which helps newly minted graduates to gain the experience they need before taking their licensing exams. So AIA and NCARB, we work closely with one another, and we've worked closely to create the definitions for HSW and interpret them in a consistent way across our two organizations. The AIA HSW definition, which now appears in the AIA standards for continuing education programs, is based off of the NCARB model. And NCARB, in response, uses language from the AIA standards to help to guide their member licensing boards. When Ramiro, Luz, and I, as reviewers, have a gray area that we encounter in our review of HSW courses, we do sometimes forward that to NCARB to get their feedback, to get their assistance in interpreting the information. So, as I stated, the HSW standards located in the standards are not new. It is a clarification of the information. So, what is HSW? If you look at the AIA CES standards for continuing education programs, standard S23-01 HSW definition states, licensed architects and affiliated design professionals have, in their professional practice, a duty to protect the public's health, safety, and welfare. Learning programs must provide knowledge intended to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the occupants of the built environment. This definition is important because it takes primacy when we are reviewing courses. And we'll talk more about that in a few moments. So, what is HSW? Health, safety, welfare. Safety addresses protection from harm of the occupants, the users, and any others who are impacted by buildings or sites. Health deals with improvement of the physical, emotional, and social well-being of those occupants of the built environment. Welfare enables equitable access, elevates the human experience, encourages social interaction, and benefits the environment. So you can also look at it as HSW covers such things as natural resources and materials, prevention from harm and safety, and welfare can be looked at as nourishment design, that which nourishes the human body and the human experience. Or more simply put, if you have a program or a course and the topic is one which would make the world a healthier, safer, or happier place, then your course may well meet HSW criteria. So there are 6 topic areas that we have spelled out within the AIA CES standards. These are based off of NCARB's ARE, Architecture Record Exam 5.0, and the different AXP divisions in which architects must receive experience before they become licensed. You can also find more information on these areas on NCARB's website at www.ncarb.org. These areas are practice management, project management, programming and analysis, project planning and design, project development and documentation, and construction and evaluation. And do we have any questions so far, Luz and Ramiro? I see we do have a couple of questions. Yes, these slides will be made available. We will have them on our provider resource page on AIA.org. And someone has a question about software training. We'll discuss that in a few moments. So the answer to your question is maybe, it depends, but we will discuss that more in a moment. So those who've been providers for a little while may recall under our previous provider platform, the CES Discovery, that you just had course description and learning objectives. We now, under our new platform, which was introduced in October 2018, CES Dashboard, have an optional HSW justification. The HSW justification is a tool. It's like a conversation between you as the provider and us as the reviewers. It is visible only to the education provider and to the course reviewers. It helps for you to further explain how your course actually aligns with health, safety, welfare, beyond just the learning objectives and the course description. It's sort of like your HSW elevator pitch. What the HSW justification is not is a repeat of the course description. It is not a repeat of your learning objectives. And please, it is not a repeat of what the AIA CES standards say. We know what they say. So we're very familiar with them. But what it is a way for you to explain briefly to us how you are viewing your course vis-a-vis HSW. So an example of an HSW justification, a good one, is here. We have one that addresses artificial lighting and versus natural lighting. Talks about the negative impact of artificial lighting, ways to provide more natural lighting solutions. And the course will touch on how daylighting solutions can reduce the need for artificial lighting, saving energy, and reducing the building's heating load. So you have a course justification here, which is dealing with health and is dealing with welfare. So the HSW justification, if you choose to use it, the course description and the learning objectives should connect the dots for one another, and they should all work together to match the goal of protecting the general public, the occupants of the built environment. So your course outline is going to introduce your course to potential participants. Your HSW justification is your discussion with us on why you feel your course meets HSW. Your learning objectives should be the different outcomes that you expect providers to, participants to gain from taking your course. It'll answer questions like, what is the student going to learn? And it should be concise. Bear in mind, if your course is at least one LU learning unit or one LU HSW in length, you must have at least 4 learning objectives. The learning objectives must be unique from one another. And please do not, and we do have providers who do this, please don't take the same question basically and restate it as 4 different learning objectives. We know when that has happened, and we will send it back to you and say, hey, how is learning objective 1 different from 2, 3, and 4? So an example of a learning objective would be, at the end of the course, students should be able to, you could say, in regard to that previous HSW justification course, you could say at the end they should be able to learn why light is good for health, safety, welfare. Yeah, that's rather vague though. So a better learning objective would be to state that participants should, or students should, understand how light synchronizes the circadian rhythm. It influences sleep-wake cycles, and this has a significant influence on our health and productivity. So what do we as reviewers look for when reviewing your course? The first and foremost thing that we look for is there a clear, direct benefit between your course and the occupants of the built environment? Not a primary benefit to the design professional, the firm, the project team, the project owner, or the contractor. The reason why I say not the owner is that the owner is not always, in fact, often not, the occupant of that built environment. This is particularly the case with educational buildings, federal, state, and local government buildings, civic projects, a lot of commercial projects. One entity owns the project, another entity resides within it. So we look at several questions when we review a course. First of all, is this course about the public or the occupants' health, safety, and welfare? So program topics that address the design professional primarily, the architect or the project team, don't meet that standard. Does the course next fall within the 6 topic areas? If it does, great. Then we go on to the next question. But just falling within those categories is not enough. That's not sufficient justification. The important issue is you have to meet the criteria of 75% of the content minimum must clearly and directly align with the health, safety, welfare of the occupants of the built environment. And this typically means that 75% of the learning objectives need to support that definition. I'm going to look at a couple of examples here that have been approved for HSW, and I have highlighted what information within the learning objectives explain that the course meets HSW. So we'll come back to this one in a moment. We're going to go to this example first. Module 5, Contracting for Passive House, Construction Documents and Bidding. This is a course that has to do with net zero carbon goals and how that addresses, how that deals with construction documents, typical construction documents and bidding versus passive house construction documents. So this one they opted not to have an HSW justification. Net zero, and for those of you who do not know, SUNY, S-U-N-Y, is the State University of New York. So this is a course that is dealing with campus design and net zero carbon goals for the campus community. So learning objective 1, obviously they are helping the participant to understand net zero carbon goals. So that would meet HSW. Learning objective 2, now we do get courses that have to do with different types of delivery methods. If you're just talking about how the project team is impacted by a learning method, that's not necessarily HSW. But if you're talking about how that delivery method is impacting something that deals with the public good or with the occupants of the built environment, in this case, design, bid, build, which is a type of delivery method, how that helps meet SUNY's net zero carbon goals, that is an HSW topic. Learning objective 3, incorporating high performance into construction documents to reduce energy user intensities, EUIs. So that if they had just stopped at review how to incorporate high performance into construction documents, as a reviewer I would have had questions as to how and why and how exactly that would be impacting directly impacting the occupants of the built environment, but they added in that specifically they're looking at reduction of energy use intensities. Again, that has to do with public welfare. And then lessons learned from past projects for improved outcomes. That's actually, I consider that HSW, because if you are learning from your past projects, you are taking that information to the next project you are working on and working to improve the outcomes for the occupants. Do we have any questions so far?
This is Luz. Can you hear me? Okay, so we have a few questions that are relevant to the topic that I want to read loud. One is about preservation, how preservation fits in this concept of HSW. It's very important that we are aware that every topic can fall in HSW or LU. So it will depend on the focus. In this case, preservation has an impact in the design, in the wellness, and in the building, in how the place that we have around is going to give something to this moment, to this future. So if we focus those courses in how the design impacts the people that are living around, these courses definitely will be considered by HSW criteria. Another question. Yes, Barbara, continue.
I was just saying that's a very good point, Luz, because preservation, which is actually near and dear to my heart, I've dealt some with preservation in architectural practice. And yeah, it does definitely have to do with how you are focusing it in vis-a-vis the occupants of the built environment, but it definitely can meet HSW criteria.
Yes, exactly. Another topic that is very controversial is wellness. Wellness is a topic that is difficult for the reviewers to see in a course. So we ask from you, when you are submitting a course that touch this aspect of wellness, to be very specific so we can understand how the course will be impacted in the architectural concept, because this is a thing that it's very difficult to see. If you send to us a course, for example, yoga in the workplace, it would be very difficult for us to understand how this is being impacted by the design. So we would like to see if you are building this place to recreational and intentional for the occupants of the building. Do you want to add another thing, Barbara, about that one?
No, actually, one of the examples that we have does touch a little bit on lead credits and wellness building criteria, so we'll talk about that a little bit in a few moments as well. But no, that's a very good point, Liz.
Perfect.
Do we have any other questions at the moment, or shall I?
Yes, you can continue.
Okay. One second. I seem to be having a little bit of a problem here. There we go. Oh, there we go. This course, we were looking at, this one I included because it is very straightforward as to dealing with materials, and the HSW justification does a lot to contribute to how this course meets HSW. So this is a course that has to do with entrance flooring systems like walk-off mats. And it's approaching it not just from the materiality, solving issues of building maintenance, but also mitigation of accidents and how to choose the right system. But the HSW justification goes further. It talks about by trapping dirt, debris, and water at the entrance of the building, entrance flooring systems reduce the need for excessive cleaning throughout the rest of the building. This positively contributes to the overall occupant health and better indoor air quality, HSW right there, and reduces the use of cleaning chemicals. That it also contributes to air quality, and the need to replace prematurely worn flooring and materials. That's a safety issue. Entrance flooring systems also reduce the risk of slip and falls by trapping water carried in by the feet and creating a clean walking surface. So even though the first learning objective is a question, what is an entrance flooring system and why is it needed? That's actually answered by the HSW justification. So as a reviewer, I see that question, but then I look at the HSW justification, I go, oh, yeah, it's answered right there. So the next learning objective is solving issues. The participant is going to learn how to solve issues related to building maintenance costs, slip fall accidents, safety, rolling loads, and environmental and aesthetic design considerations. So it's again, that's HSW issues. Learning objective 3, problems that can occur if the wrong or no entrance flooring products are used. As a designer, I would want to know what problems to design for and how to mitigate that for the building occupants. And then learning 4, how to choose the right system to mitigate risk yet create a great first impression. Again, design and safety issues right there. Now this one we've already done. Oh, sorry. Oh no, this was the last one I wanted to talk about. Sink selection and sustainability and accessibility. Again, this is a course that has an HSW justification. They did a pretty straightforward health, safety, welfare. in discussing how their course meets these topics. Health, course covering the importance of proper ventilation, so that would be air quality, the need for HEPA filters on hand dryers, the importance of sensor technology to reduce contamination, all definitely health issues. Safety, course covers the importance of deck-mounted hand dryers to keep wet hands in the basin for drying and not dripping on the floor. So you don't want a slip and fall hazard there. Welfare, discussing selecting healthy materials for the solid surface of the sink. They are also covering the importance of ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, and the benefits of proper accessibility design. So, learning objective 1, they are looking at the specification for the sink systems that are sustainable and accessible. Specifications are an area that falls within HSW topics. If your course is just discussing in general how to write a specification, that's not necessarily, that one I would personally have a lot of questions in regards to, well, what specific area are you looking at? This course is being more clear in that they're dealing with specification of a particular type of system, of the sink system, and they're looking at it from the sustainability and accessibility standpoint. If you are discussing, say, particular testing standards within within specifications, again, that is something that is more of an HSW issue because you're trying to explain how a specified material is meeting a particular standard. Learning objective 2, evaluating the sink materials, styles, components, including the faucet, soap dispenser, and hand dryer that can contribute to water efficiency. That's an environmental issue. Energy efficiency and improved hygiene. So again, that's an HSW criteria there. Learning objective 3, review ADA criteria to consider when planning commercial restroom sink lavatory design. The reason being that ADA has particular guidelines that you have to meet when designing commercial restrooms as opposed to your bathroom at home. Learning objective 4, someone had asked earlier about about sustainability criteria and LEED credits, as well as building criteria for commercial restroom design. In this case, it's the fact that they are looking at LEED and specifically for commercial restroom design. There are certain topics within LEED and within that are going to be applicable to restroom design as opposed to if you're doing transportation design, site design. So if you are talking in general terms about how to achieve LEED certification or how to achieve building standards, that has more to do with the project team really than with the occupants of the built environment. If you are looking at specific portions of the LEED credits or particular petals within the International Living Futures Institute criteria, if you're looking at a specific portion of these criteria and how it is applicable to the occupants, how it is applicable to the public good, then that begins to align more with HSW criteria. And I do realize that I had skipped over this example. I'm going to go back to this one because somebody else had a question that had to do with utilization of different types of like BIM, Revit. We get courses that have to do with virtual reality or drone use in regards to construction. If your course has to do with the functionality of something like building information modeling systems, if it has to do with the function, how to actually operate this technology, that's not HSW. That's more focused on the project team. The occupant of the built environment isn't using this item. that's focused more on the project team. But if you are then taking that information, such as BIM, Learning Objective 1, recognize BIM's ability to incorporate advanced analysis capabilities, including energy modeling, into the design process. The provider is now being more clear on that specifically BIM is being used for energy modeling to help with the energy efficiency of the building. That brings it into the realm of HSW. With Learning Objective 2, understand how BIM enhances project collaboration, communication, and integration of design. Now, if they had stopped right there, as a reviewer, I would go, yeah, but how is that really going to help the occupants of the built environment? But they went further and explain about where they're now taking it from where it is impacting the project team, because project collaboration, communication, integrated design deals with the team, but now they're going into allows for a more effective monitoring of the project's progress that can tremendously help with identifying the various dangers on site. Bearing in mind that the occupants of the built environment include the construction team, who are the temporary occupants of the building. It includes the project team members, the architect, the engineers, who come on site to do site evaluation. So if there are issues that are dealing with site dangers, that are dealing with site safety, that is HSW. So survey BIM's growing role in the realm of post-occupancy project analysis, such as hazard simulation. Again, they're looking at something specific that deals with the welfare and the safety of those within the built environment, and building operations such as active energy usage analysis to achieve enhanced project performance goals. Okay. Do we have any other questions at the moment?
Yes, we have a few questions. One that I want to clarify is about if tours can be HSW. Of course, every delivery method that we have can be tours, can be a live learning, online, on demand. All of them can be HSW. You just need to meet the requirements and post on the topic that your content is 75% towards to protect the general public.
Very true, and I can state that yeah, I'm a licensed architect with more than 20 years experience, and so I'm a consumer of continuing education too. And I can tell you that I have learned a tremendous amount from tours that I've taken.
Yes. So we have an interesting question here. It's about if a course has 50% HSW and the other 50% is not, if it can be HSW. So no. If you have a course that is 50%, we recommend to you that you deliver the course as two courses, one for HSW and the other one for LU.
Yeah, because as was stated earlier, the criteria is that at least, that is at a minimum, 75% of that course information must clearly and directly align with health, safety, welfare topics. One of the things that we refer to in AIA CES is whether a course meets or fails the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon test. What that means is, when we were talking earlier about a course having an impact on the direct impact being on the project team or on the architect versus on the occupants of the built environment. And we use that language very carefully. That there are times when, as with the BIM course that we just talked about a few moments ago, where the impact to the public is through the architect. They are gaining a benefit from the course, learning about BIM and with collaboration, and then using that to mitigate dangers on the site. So the project team is then using that information and that is what is being taught in that course. They are being used to mitigate dangers on the site and to increase the safety on the site for those who are occupying it, including the construction team who are the temporary occupants of the site. Now, we do get questions from providers sometimes about, when we review a course. Okay, when we review a course, there are 3 possible outcomes. Either your course gets approved, hooray, you can go deliver it, and your course is approved for 3 years from the date of approval. Or what often happens is you will get a return for more information. We as providers, that doesn't mean that we are rejecting you. It doesn't mean we are rejecting your course. It means that we have questions. And if you were sitting right in front of us while we were doing the review, we would turn to you and ask you these questions. But we can't. We have 3,300 education providers. Luz Romero and I review 34,000 courses per year. So we have to put our questions into a dashboard and return it to you that way. So we try to provide clear guidance on why your course is being returned. We try to include specific questions. That's our role. Part of your role as the reviewer is to look over those comments and take action on them. When you go into when you receive the email that says return for more information, go to dashboard. Go into your course information. Go to your list of courses. Go to your specific course. On your course information page, you'll see the course information, the description, the learning objectives on the left. In the middle, you'll see manage course status. To the right of that is the comments history. Click on view my comments. It will have a list of the actions you have taken and the dates that those occurred. You will also see the email address of the reviewer who reviewed your course, their email address, and it will have view, and you can take a look at that comment. Believe me, we review those comments too when we are reviewing courses. And sometimes we have to send a course back for the same reasons, because we do have providers who will look at the course and not take action. We do sometimes deny courses. Usually that is if a provider has not taken the recommended action several times and just return the course without making the requested changes. Also, we do get courses that have absolutely nothing to do with the built environment. Several months ago, I reviewed a course that had to do with baby monitors. Given that I have an 11-year-old, I do have experience with baby monitors, and I rejected it and said, no, baby monitors are an aftermarket product. They really are not germane to the built environment. So the review process typically takes about 10 business days, but it can take longer if we have to return your course several times. So you might want to build that in if you have questions. Okay, and you can always send questions about your review either directly to the reviewer, or you can send it to ces@aia.org. Do we have any other questions today?
It looks like we don't have more questions, but I want to add something. And please be mindful that we don't see the presentation. We only see the information that you send through the dashboard. So please give us all the information that you have. Use the HSW justification. We want to understand what is your course about. We don't want to send your course back 2 or 3 times. We want you to give the approval in the first time. So we need you to be very specific and that you show the whole information so we can understand your course better.
Very good point, Liz. There are times when we as reviewers just cannot quite understand what the point is of the direction you're trying to go with your course, I should say. And there may be times that we reach out to you as a provider and say, hey, do you have the course? Can you send us this so we can look it over? Sometimes there's a question of whether the course has proprietary information, because sometimes we have providers who will put that information in their course description and learning objectives. And we'll need to look it over for that. But for the most part, unless you are requested by one of the AIA CES reviewers, Luz Romero or myself, to provide your course to us so that we can examine it further for HSW and understand how you're, the direction you're taking, or in the case of provider audits, if you are requested as part of a provider audit, normally we're not going to ask you to send us your presentation. Sometimes providers do reach out to one of us and ask us specific questions, either while they are have the course in review or before, when they're in the creation stage for their course, and we're always happy to help. We have any other questions today? Okay, I see a question going back to the lighting course. Why can't the first objective be four objectives? Let me go back to that one very quickly. I think that was, I wonder if that was this one. To answer your question, yeah, that learning objective, understand how light synchronizes the circadian rhythm. Yes, that could be 2 or even 3 separate learning objectives. In this case, this person decided to make it 1. So yeah, that could be separate learning objectives. Any other questions? Okay. Well, if we don't have any other questions, thank you for participating in this AIA CES webinar. You can always reach us at ces@aia.org. Thank you very much.